What if Hollywood's golden glow was built on secrets no studio dared to admit? Behind the gowns, the glamour, and the glittering spotlights, some of old Hollywood's brightest stars came from shadows most people never talk about. They didn't just act their way to fame, they survived their way there. And the stories of what they did before the cameras rolled will make you look at the golden age in a whole new light. 1. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford wasn't born into stardom. She clawed her way toward it. Before the Oscar, the fame, and the legend, she was Lucille LeSueur, a girl hustling through Kansas City's rough streets. She scrubbed floors, danced in cheap nightclubs, and learned early that survival came before dreams. Rumors swirled that she entertained wealthy patrons who offered money and opportunities she couldn't refuse. Some biographers say she was kept by older men long before Hollywood ever called. When Crawford arrived in Los Angeles, she transformed overnight from a chorus girl with a mysterious past to MGM's newest obsession. Her hunger to succeed was unmatched, and she carried that edge into every role she played. Even her rivals admitted Joan had a survivor's fire that couldn't be faked. Whether the stories about her early life were gossip or truth, Joan Crawford built her empire from the ashes of struggle. Every diamond she wore was proof that no one, no man, no rumor could define her again. 2. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's story reads like a film noir that went off the rails. She was a blonde bombshell with the world at her feet, then lost it all just as fast. Before the fame, she was a small-town girl who learned early that charm could buy safety. By her mid-teens, she was already surrounded by older admirers who paid her rent, bought her dresses, and introduced her to the right people. When Barbara landed in Hollywood, her beauty lit up the screen, but her private life burned brighter. She fell into scandal after scandal, from violent relationships to tabloid chaos. Her explosive affair with Tom Neal and Franchot Tone became front-page drama. As her career collapsed, Barbara did something almost unheard of in that era. She admitted her truth. Her memoir, I Am Not Ashamed, revealed how she returned to the same world she had once escaped, struggling to survive while Hollywood turned its back. Barbara Payton's life was tragic, bold, and brutally honest. She became a cautionary tale for starlets who dreamed of fame without knowing what it cost. 3. Clara Bow. Clara Bow was the original it girl, the face that defined the Roaring Twenties. But behind that lively grin and flapper charm was a past steeped in heartbreak. Growing up in Brooklyn's slums, Clara faced hunger, violence, and despair before she ever faced a camera. Her father vanished, her mother was unstable, and the young girl who would one day light up the screen had to find ways to survive. Hollywood loved Clara's energy but whispered about her wildness. Behind closed doors, powerful men took advantage of her desperation and her dreams. Some insiders claimed she was passed around early in her career by studio fixers who promised fame in return. Others said she was coerced into private parties meant to entertain producers. Clara Bow gave everything she had to Hollywood, and it nearly broke her. She became a star, but the scars of those early years never faded. When her nervous breakdown ended, her career, many said she paid the highest price a woman could for stardom. 4. Mae West. Mae West didn't hide her power, she turned it into art. Long before she became the queen of double entendre and sass, Mae was a teenage performer in smoky vaudeville clubs, where the line between theater and temptation blurred. Audiences adored her confidence, but the places she performed weren't the kind you brought your family to. Mae learned early that the world wanted her charm and her confidence, and she wasn't giving it away for free. Some historians believe she performed at exclusive private gatherings, entertaining wealthy patrons who paid generously. But unlike most, Mae turned what others hid into a public persona. She wrote plays that got banned, was arrested for indecency, and came out of jail more famous than ever. When Hollywood finally came calling, Mae West was no one's victim. She flipped the script on an industry that exploited women and made herself the boss. She once said, "I've always given people what they wanted for a price." That price turned out to be her ticket to immortality. 5. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake was the mysterious blonde every man in the 40s dreamed about, but her off-screen life was far less glamorous. Born Constance Ockelman, she grew up in chaos. Money was scarce, and her mother's push to make her famous meant Veronica learned early how power and charm worked in Hollywood. Rumors followed her for years that she had entertained certain producers before her big break, that her meteoric rise came with strings attached. Insiders claimed she was troubled but cooperative, a coded way of saying she played by the unspoken rules of the studio era. Veronica's beauty made her a star, but her spirit made her difficult to control. Her on-set clashes, drinking, and eventual fall from grace painted the picture of a woman deeply haunted by what she had endured to make it. By the time she was working as a waitress in her later years, the Hollywood dream had long faded. But Veronica Lake's allure never did. Her life remains a reminder that behind every glamorous image, there's often a story no studio publicity team could ever clean up. 6. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was Hollywood's original scandal. In heels, a woman who lived loudly, laughed louder, and never apologized for it. Born into Southern wealth, she ran from privilege straight into the wild side of New York theater at 15. While most girls her age were in finishing school, Tallulah was sneaking into speakeasies and charming every man and woman who could open a door for her. Rumors followed her from the moment she hit Broadway. Some said she offered herself to wealthy producers when her allowance ran out. Others whispered she took patron arrangements to keep her apartment and her name in the papers. Whether it was survival or rebellion, Tallulah owned it. Her signature drawl, "Hello, darling," became as famous as her defiance. When Hollywood tried to tame her, it failed miserably. She didn't care about rules, image, or gossip. She told one interviewer, "My father warned me about men and liquor, but he forgot to mention women in danger." Every word fit her legend. Whether or not the rumors were true, Tallulah Bankhead lived as though she owed no one an explanation, and maybe that was her greatest act of rebellion. 7. Hedy Lamarr. To the world, Hedy Lamarr was the most beautiful woman alive. But before Hollywood glamour, she lived a very different story. Born Hedwig Kiesler in Austria, she married a wealthy munitions dealer twice her age who treated her like a possession. Desperate to escape, she disguised herself as a maid and fled across Europe. Alone, broken, hunted by her ex-husband's influence, she did what she had to in order to survive. While in Paris, unverified accounts suggest she worked as a paid companion for wealthy patrons, men who gave her protection, passage, and connections. It wasn't romance, it was survival in high heels. That path eventually led her to Hollywood, where she reinvented herself completely. Once in America, Hedy became a star, and later a genius. Few know she co-created a communication system that inspired modern Wi-Fi. From alleged escort to inventor, her life proved that brilliance sometimes hides behind beauty. Hollywood sold her as a dream, but Hedy Lamarr's real story was a masterclass in outsmarting the system. 8. Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer didn't play by Hollywood's rules, and that's what made her dangerous. A rebellious spirit from Seattle, she came to Los Angeles armed with talent, intelligence, and defiance. She didn't smile when told to, didn't flatter the powerful, and didn't hide her contempt for the industry's hypocrisy. That independence came with a price. In her early days when work was scarce, and money scarce, her story spread that Frances attended elite Hollywood parties where young actresses were expected to offer more than conversation. Whether it was rumor or reality, her disdain for Hollywood's moral double standards only grew stronger. Later, when she was institutionalized after public breakdowns, she suffered horrific abuse that nearly erased her spirit. Some say the same power players who once courted her talent ensured her silence. Yet even after everything, Frances remained fearless, a symbol of the price women paid for refusing to conform. She didn't just break Hollywood's rules, she exposed them. 9. Evelyn Keyes. Evelyn Keyes looked like Hollywood's perfect Southern belle in Gone with the Wind, but her real story wasn't nearly so polished. Raised in Texas poverty, Evelyn knew early that charm could buy survival. When she came to Los Angeles, she found herself in a system where men with money controlled every door and often every opportunity behind it. In her own memoir, Evelyn admitted she was a kept woman before fame. She described her early years bluntly, living in fine apartments paid for by older married men who offered security she couldn't find anywhere else. Those relationships weren't romantic, they were transactional, but they helped her climb into the world she dreamed of. Once she broke through, Evelyn married powerful men, including director John Huston, but happiness never followed. She called Hollywood a place where love was just another bargain. Her story is both haunting and honest, a reminder that behind every glamorous photo shoot was often a deal no one dared to write down. 10. Lupe Velez. Lupe Velez was a whirlwind, brilliant, fiery, and unforgettable. Dubbed the Mexican Spitfire, she was one of the first Latina stars to conquer Hollywood. But before the fame, she was a struggling dancer in Mexico, performing in dim nightclubs where patrons could pay for far more than a show. Poverty and ambition often collided, and Lupe used whatever she had to survive. When she arrived in Hollywood, she burst onto the scene with unstoppable charisma. Yet whispers from her past followed her. Insiders claimed she'd been discovered at a private party thrown by an MGM executive, a gathering where entertainment was not limited to singing. Hollywood adored her fiery personality but mocked her accent and background. She fought harder than most to be taken seriously. Every headline focused on her temper, not her talent. Still, Lupe Velez refused to play the victim. She owned her story even when it was rewritten by others. Behind the laughter and sparkle was a woman who lived fearlessly and burned too brightly for the system that tried to control her. 11. Rita Hayworth. Before Rita Hayworth became the dream of every World War II soldier, she was Margarita Cancino, a shy dancer performing alongside her father in cheap California clubs. Fame was still far away, and her father's ambitions came at a dark cost. Many biographers claim he loaned her to wealthy patrons during their tours, using her as bait for bookings and business favors. The teenage dancer who would become a global icon was raised in a world that blurred the line between art and exploitation. When she finally caught Hollywood's eye, Columbia Pictures erased everything that made her real. They changed her name, her hairline, even her accent, turning Margarita into Rita. But Rita Hayworth never fully escaped her past. In interviews, she hinted at pain behind her perfect smile. "Men go to bed with Gilda," she once said, "but they wake up with me." A simple line that said everything about a woman who'd been remade for men's fantasies and longed to be seen for herself. 12. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow was the platinum blonde bombshell who made audiences swoon. But before fame, she was a 16-year-old bride trapped in an unhappy marriage. When it fell apart, she started visiting studio lots with her husband and somehow ended up in front of the cameras instead. Whispers spread quickly. Hollywood insiders claimed Jane had served as a paid companion for studio executives and businessmen, allegedly guided by her ambitious mother. By the time MGM turned her into a sensation in Hell's Angels in 1930, Jean had already learned the unspoken rules of the town charm: them please them, survive them. Behind the glittering smile was a girl who'd seen too much too young. Even after she became a superstar, she struggled to control her image and escape the men who treated her like property. Jean Harlow's sudden death at 26 froze her in perfection, but also preserved the mystery of how much she endured to get there. 13. Betty Grable. Betty Grable's legs were insured for $1 million, but they walked her through a very different world before Hollywood. Raised by an ambitious mother, she was performing in clubs before she was old enough to drive. Those early chorus girl gigs weren't glamorous, they were survival wrapped in sequins. Rumors say she attended private after-parties where agents brought producers looking for new talent. Whether true or not, Betty learned the game early. When Fox signed her, the studio erased the past and packaged her as the wholesome all-American sweetheart. But Betty's own words hinted at exhaustion. She once said she felt like a product with legs. The poster girl for soldiers during World War II, she became a symbol of purity the industry knew she wasn't. Beneath the polished surface was a woman who played the Hollywood system perfectly, but never forgot how it first played her. 14. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner's beauty could stop traffic and often did. Born poor in North Carolina, she moved to New York as a teenager with nothing but dreams and determination. She worked in a nightclub that catered to wealthy patrons, a place where charm could turn into opportunity. Some say Ava entered arrangements with powerful men who helped her pay her bills and fund her path to Hollywood. When MGM discovered her, they cleaned her image but never tamed her spirit. She drank, loved, and lived with the same intensity she brought to the screen. Her marriages to Mickey Rooney and Frank Sinatra became tabloid gold, but her independence made her unforgettable. Ava once said, "I made it because I knew how to survive." She wasn't exaggerating. Behind her sultry glamour was a small-town girl who learned early that in Hollywood, survival was the greatest talent of all. 15. Linda Darnell. Linda Darnell was sold as Hollywood's dream girl, but she was barely old enough to drive when that dream began. Pushed by her mother into auditions at 15, she was quickly molded into a studio fantasy. But behind that facade were chilling rumors that she was part of a secret starlet circle where young actresses were expected to entertain producers in exchange for roles. Studio fixers controlled everything from the dresses she wore to the parties she attended. Those social obligations were anything but optional. By the time she was 18, Linda was famous but already wary of the men who ran her life. Her later years were marked by heartbreak, drinking, and depression. She died tragically young, her beauty turned into myth. The truth behind her rise was buried under contracts and silence. But every photograph of her with those haunting eyes seems to ask the same question. Was it worth it? 16. Susan Hayward. Susan Hayward had that unmistakable fire in her eyes. Every performance felt personal, like she'd lived the struggle herself. And maybe she had. Before becoming an Oscar-winning powerhouse, she was Edith Mariner from Brooklyn, another dreamer who arrived in Los Angeles with more grit than connections. The Great Depression had left her broke, and Hollywood wasn't kind to girls without a name. She attended lavish industry parties where, as insiders whispered, charm was currency. Young actresses were expected to please producers far beyond polite conversation, and saying no could end a career before it began. Some claim Susan accepted the protection of a powerful agent who covered her rent and expenses, her own silent trade-off for survival. As she rose through the ranks, that early bitterness shaped her. She played wounded, resilient women because she knew what they felt. She called the industry a factory where dreams come with a price tag, and that honesty bled through every frame she appeared in. Susan Hayward didn't just play strength, she earned it the hard way. 17. Lili St. Before Marilyn Monroe and Betty Page, there was Lili St. the woman who made burlesque an art form. Her shimmering costumes, champagne baths, and velvet confidence made her a household name in the 40s and 50s. But Lili's rise started far from glitter and fame. Born Marie and Shock, she began dancing in the small Los Angeles clubs, where performers were paid to entertain both on and off stage. Lili didn't deny it. She later admitted to taking private clients in exchange for stability, calling herself a working woman in every sense. She was arrested multiple times for immoral earnings, but every scandal only made her more famous. Lili St. wasn't ashamed of her past. She used it to define herself. While Hollywood stars pretended to be pure, Lili owned her choices. Her unapologetic boldness inspired generations of performers who refused to be silenced or shamed. She may not have had a Walk of Fame star, but she walked her own red carpet built entirely on self-made glitter and grit. 18. Thelma Todd. Thelma Todd was the ice cream blonde, dazzling comedic talent whose life ended in one of Hollywood's most suspicious tragedies. But even before her mysterious death, her story was tangled in danger, glamour, and whispers of vice. Before fame, she entered beauty contests to escape small-town life and earn money. When her career took off, she opened Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe, a glamorous seaside hangout for stars, and allegedly a front for underground gambling and escort arrangements managed by mobsters. Some insiders said the upstairs rooms were used to entertain influential clients in secret. Her connection to gangster Lucky Luciano only fueled suspicion that she'd been pulled into something far bigger than herself. When she was later found dead in her car, rumors spread like wildfire. Was it an accident, or did she know too much? Whether pawn or player, Thelma Todd was caught in a Hollywood where crime, corruption, and fame shared the same bed. She played the game, but the game may have played her harder. 19. Bessie Love. Sweet-faced, soft-voiced Bessie Love was the very image of innocence in silent films. But behind that image, her climb to fame wasn't as clean as the studios made it seem. Born in Texas and raised on dreams, she arrived in Los Angeles just as the movie industry was taking shape, and she was willing to do whatever it took to belong. Whispers from early Hollywood claim Bessie worked part-time at gentlemen's clubs, frequented by producers and directors. A former madam later alleged that one of D.W. Griffith's favorite girls, with curls and a bright smile, used to work for her, a description that matched Love perfectly. Once she signed with Vitagraph Studios, her past vanished overnight. They repackaged her as the sweetheart of the screen, pure, polite, and perfect. Bessie never confirmed the rumors, but she never denied them either. Maybe she didn't need to. Her performances were filled with sincerity and vulnerability, the marks of someone who'd seen the world at its roughest before Hollywood ever saw her. 20. Peg Entwistle. Peg Entwistle's name is forever tied to the Hollywood sign, but few remember what led her there. Before her death made her a legend, she was a struggling stage actress trying to survive in Depression-era Los Angeles. She came from a broken home and found herself trapped between ambition and poverty. Friends later claimed she sometimes entertained wealthy backers for money and meals. Hollywood's party circuit was ruthless. Young actresses were invited to social mixers that were little more than transactions in disguise. Peg wanted fame so badly that she accepted almost any offer that might get her seen. Her story became a symbol of Hollywood's cruelty, a dream that promised everything and delivered nothing. But before the myth took over, Peg Entwistle was simply another young woman lost in a city that rewarded innocence only long enough to break it. 21. Barbara Lamarr. Barbara Lamarr was known as the girl who was too beautiful, a title that carried both awe and tragedy. Before she became a silent film sensation, she was already famous for all the wrong reasons. Born Rita Watson, she ran away from home as a teenager and lived fast. She became a dancer, then a courtesan for wealthy patrons across California. Newspapers called her the most sought-after girl in Los Angeles. When she transitioned into films, the studio buried her past under glamour and mystery. Barbara didn't live long, but her beauty left a haunting mark on the era. She once said, "I don't care how I live so long as I live." That defiance defined her short, brilliant, and scandal-soaked life. Behind the painted lips and smoky eyes was a woman who'd already paid her dues before fame ever found her. 22. Lana Turner. Lana Turner's discovery story, spotted sipping a soda at a Hollywood diner, sounds like a fairy tale. But behind that story was a reality much harsher. Before the cameras adored her, Lana's teenage years were spent dodging poverty and chasing survival. Multiple accounts suggest she entered arrangements with producers and powerful men who offered mentorship in exchange for companionship. Her mother reportedly encouraged her to be friendly if it helped her career. When MGM transformed her into the ultimate femme fatale, those whispers were buried under studio polish. Lana herself once said, "I planned on being discovered, I just didn't plan on what came with it." Her life was filled with glamour and chaos, failed marriages, scandals, and endless reinvention. But deep down, Lana Turner was the embodiment of Hollywood's great illusion, the dream that came dressed in diamonds but built on survival. 23. Carole Landis. Carole Landis was called the Blonde Bombshell, a title that hid a long history of struggle. She grew up poor in Wisconsin, married at 15, and left home soon after. In her early years, she worked in nightclubs where wealthy clients offered her money for company and introductions. Those arrangements carried her into modeling and eventually Hollywood. The studios rebranded her as a goddess of glamour, but behind that glow was exhaustion. Friends later revealed she often felt trapped, grateful for fame, but resentful of how she'd been forced to earn it. Carole gave everything to the screen, and audiences adored her. Yet off-camera, she remained haunted by loneliness and the sense that Hollywood had stolen something she could never reclaim. Her story was both dazzling and heartbreaking, a reminder that beauty was often both gift and curse. 24. Joan Blondell. Joan Blondell was the woman next door with the quick smile and sass that made Depression-era audiences fall in love. But before she became Warner Brothers' Golden Girl, she was hustling on the vaudeville circuit, where life wasn't as charming as her later roles suggested. Money was tight, and many young women in the theater scene relied on sponsors to stay afloat. Joan danced in smoky speakeasies where customers could pay extra for private attention, a reality she later described as part of the job back then. By the time Hollywood discovered her, she was a professional at survival. Her wisecracking screen persona mirrored her real self, tough, clever, and unashamed of where she came from. Joan Blondell was proof that resilience, not luck, made a star shine in a world built to dim them. 25. Gloria Grahame. Gloria Grahame was pure Hollywood contradiction, fragile yet fierce, glamorous yet wounded. Before she lit up the screen in It's a Wonderful Life and the Bad and the Beautiful, she was a struggling stage actress trying to make rent in New York. Those early years were tough. Rumors say she took sponsorships from wealthy admirers in exchange for financial help. Whether true or exaggerated, Gloria carried herself with the quiet knowledge of someone who'd seen the system's dark corners. Even after she won an Academy Award, she couldn't shake the rumors or the scars. Her marriages, scandals, and defiance made her one of Hollywood's most fascinating rebels. Gloria once said, "I never learned how to play safe." That one line sums her up completely, a woman who lived without apology, even when the price was her peace. Behind Hollywood's shine were women who fought, endured, and refused to fade. They weren't just stars, they were survivors in a world that sold dreams for a price. Every flawless smile hid a battle no studio dared to show. So next time you watch those old classics, remember the strength behind the sparkle. Which story surprised you most? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.